Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. It's the final week this week, isn't it, before half term? Next week, you've got a week off, half term week to relax, to enjoy yourselves, to not have to worry about schoolwork and to get outside and enjoy a bit of fresh air in the safest way that we can at the minute. So this week, you've got a brilliant last week of half term. You've got lots of fantastic things planned. And in literacy, we're going to be looking at non-chronological reports. Non-chronological reports, that's a long thing to say. It's a posh way of saying non-fiction texts. And we have done work on non-fiction texts in the autumn term. Can you remember when we did those brilliant bear fact cards, when we did our bear topic, and we learnt lots of things about lots of different species of bear: black bears, sun bears, polar bears, panda bears. We learnt lots of different information about different bears, and you wrote some fact cards about it. Information, real information about a topic, and that's what you're going to be learning more about this week with your lessons with Mrs Alloway on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. She'll be giving you lots of information and insight into animals in the polar regions of Earth. So later on in the week, you'll be using the information I give you today and writing about the polar regions, the Arctic and the Antarctic. But anyway, we'll move on. Let's start getting our head around what a non-chronological report is now. And I'll remind you and give you some more tips and pointers, and then you can use that information later on in the week with the work that you do then. It's all very exciting. So let me get Mr. PowerPoint up. Dum, 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 from beginning. Oh, hang on a minute. Not shared it yet. Not shared it yet. Share. Here we go. The title says, How to Write a Non-Chronological Report. Can you say the word chronological? Have a go. Chronological. Chronological is when something might be in an order. If it's non-chronological, that means it doesn't necessarily follow an order. It's just information, factual information given to somebody. Non-chronological report. The purpose of a non-chronological report is to describe something factual, the way things are, and tells you what something is or was. It's not a made-up story, it's not fiction, it's non-fiction, it's truthful, and you're giving information, you're sharing information through this text, like when we did our bear ones. And there's lots of different ways you could structure this out, and there's lots of different ways that non-chronological reports can look. However, it is interesting to note that they should all start with an opening statement. The reader who is reading your work wants to be introduced to the information. What is your writing about? So who are you writing about? What is it? Or what is it used for? Where is it found? So in that opening statement, you can answer a lot of initial questions. Who are you writing? Who are you writing about? What is it, or what is it used for? Where is it found, and when is it found? Depending on what you're writing about, some of these questions might make sense, they might not. But you're just generally telling the reader what you're going to be going into in more detail later on in your writing. And then you're going to add the details. So description of the topic or the situation, something including some or all of its qualities, parts and their functions, habits or behaviours or uses. So once you've done your opening paragraph, you can then get into the nitty-gritty and start giving all the details about qualities, functions, habits and behaviours of whatever you're writing about. So let's have a little look at a non-chronological report. I've chosen this one here and we'll read through it together now to see if we can identify some of the bits that we've just spoken about. Every chronological report, every non-fiction report needs a title at the top. And the title is always quite big and clear, so everyone knows what that article is going to be about. And this one is called The Layers of the Ocean. I already know what it's about. The layers of the ocean. Well, the ocean is the sea, isn't it? Not on land, it's out at sea. And it's about layers. Oh, well, I'm instantly intrigued because I didn't know that there were layers in the ocean. Let's read on. Here's my subheading. Ocean layers. There are 5 layers of the ocean. Wow! Read on to find out how they are all different. And that sentence has ended with an ellipsis, so it's making me, the reader, and you, the reader, want to read on and find out more, isn't it? It's also getting me to ask quite a few questions. First of all, I was surprised there were layers in the ocean. And now I'm wondering, oh, what are those layers? What could they be? What happens in them? What do they look like? What animals live there? This article has started off really well because it's got me quite excited about finding out more. So when you write your article about your non-chronological report about polar regions later in the week, can you think of a good way to start your writing off? Okay, now it goes on to it goes into a diagram. Look, it shows us all the 5 layers. So the top layer of the ocean is called the sunlight zone, then the twilight zone, then the midnight zone, then the abyss, then the trench. So I'm guessing that's all to do with the depth. As you go further down and down and down into the ocean, there are these different layers. If I scroll down a bit, now I can see that they've used text boxes and they've gone into more detail on each of those zones, each of those layers. The sunlight zone is our first text box here, and the subheading is the sunlight zone. Again, another subheading, something you're going to use in your text. And it's bullet pointing, it's giving me some quick, short sentences that's giving me information about that subheading. The sunlight zone. Sunlight can reach this layer. Okay. The water is warm, probably because the sunlight heats it through, not the warmth from the sun heats it through. Lots of animals and plants live here. You can swim here. 4 facts about the sunlight zone. Thank you very much. The next part, our subheading, is the twilight zone. And again, some bullet pointed information for us. Let's read it together. Sunlight can't get to this layer, so it is very dark. Animals that live here have big eyes. And I think here they've given us an example of an animal that lives in this zone. So there's even information in the pictures that they're giving us. In the sunlight zone, it said people can swim there. So they've put a scuba diver lady. And in here, the twilight zone, there's a picture of a red octopus, an octopus here. So animals that live here have big eyes. And an octopus is an example of that. The next subheading is the midnight zone. So we're going further down, I think, into the ocean. And again, quite an ugly looking fish as an example of an animal there. Let's read it together. The midnight zone. No sunlight can get to this layer. So it is black. Animals that live here make their own light. On a side note, does anybody watch Octonauts? Because in that programme on CBeebies, they have some really good information about animals in the sea. It interests me. And I'm sure they have an episode where one of the animals makes its own light. And I can't remember the name of it, but I remember Googling it and it was really interesting. They look so pretty. The animals in the Midnight Zone definitely look very pretty and maybe quite fierce and scary as well. Good. So we've learnt through this non-chronological report so far that there are different layers, 5 different layers, and we've learnt information about 3 of them so far. And it continues onto a second page. So in the abyss, this is the next subheading. So in the next text box with some information about the abyss, there's a picture as well. It says no sunlight can get to this layer, so it is pitch black. Only a few animals can live here. And the final layer is called the trench. There's another subheading, and then the information under it is to do with that subheading. The trench is also called the ocean floor. It is freezing cold down here. In the information we've read so far, it is filled with information, quite short sentences. There's some use of good keywords, technical words to do with the topic it's writing about. And finally, it's got another picture. Does anybody know what this big picture here is at the bottom of the page? Fills up most of the page, actually. That's right, it's a picture of a world map. Look, we're right here in the middle. Now the land is all green. All the parts that aren't in the sea and oceans is green, that's the land mass. And all the blue area is the oceans. And it's got a question for us. Sometimes questions are really good to put into non-chronological reports because it intrigues the reader to find out more. It says, did you know? ? So I definitely want to read this, but did you know? It must be giving me a final fact. Here we go. Let's read this final fact together. I've highlighted it. More of the earth is covered by ocean than by land. What a good final fact to finish on. So this is a really good example of a non-chronological report. It is packed full of facts that we've learned. It has used some good vocabulary, quite short sentences to keep us on our toes, to keep us concentrated on it and to help us digest what we're reading. Maybe you can take some of these ideas later on in the week to put into your own writing. What do I want to go to now? Let's have a look here. Right, my next one. It says planning and research. Now you'll be doing this. You don't need to worry about this too much now because you'll be doing this as the week goes on. But it's something for you to bear in mind. Use a range of resources to gather your information. So Mrs. Ellaway is going to be reading you some books about what your topic is going to be on. Maybe you've got some fact books at home as well that you can get information from. Plan what paragraphs are needed and what is going under them. So what are your subheadings going to be and what facts go with those subheadings? It is helpful to write in note form while you're planning. We know that already because we've done lots of planning when we've done our work at school in the autumn term. Select facts from a range of sources to interest the reader. Books, interviews, films and TV documentaries. There's lots of ways that you can gather your information in when you're researching your topic. And planning and research is very important when you're writing a non-chronological report, because you're trying to educate people through your work. You're trying to give them real facts, something that they can learn from. So you want your facts to be accurate and interesting. And before I leave you today, I want you to have a look. I'll put this on your Seesaw account. It's a non-chronological report writing word mat, and it might be you can have this up on the screen, or you might want to print it off. Something a point of reference for you. So later on in the week, when you're writing your report, think about features of your and also, sorry, and I want you to we'll read through this mat, and I want you to identify some of these things in the non-chronological reports that you're going to be reading yourself in a minute. So when you're about to read through some more non-chronological reports, and when you're writing your own later on in the week, think about these. So features of it. Start with that big title at the top of the report. Make sure you've got your introduction paragraph in, telling the reader what the report's about. Put your information into sections, into those little areas, text boxes, with each one with a subheading. Use facts that you have researched. Don't make them up off the top of your head. They've got to be real life facts, not from your imagination this time. And include pictures with captions to give that extra bit, that extra visual bit of information. Now, we don't want all the sentences to start the same, because that's quite boring, isn't it? So here are some good ideas when you write yours as how you can start your sentences. One interesting fact about this is, another thing to note is, even though lots of people think, but it is actually, amazingly, some others, it is known that there are lots of good ways there for you to start your sentences when it comes to your own writing that will really bring your writing and your work to life. And then it just gives us some useful things to remember as well, which is the same for all of our work. Use your capital letters for names, places, and at the beginning of sentences. End your sentences with a full stop. Also, you can include your question sentences or an exclamation mark if it's a really exciting bit of information. Separate items in the list using commas. Add an apostrophe to show possession. Use joining words to add extra information to your sentences. We've done loads on that. Conjunctions, your ands, becauses, buts. And make sure all the spelling words that you should be spelling right are spelled correctly. Doesn't matter if you make a few mistakes. Mrs Warburton always makes a few mistakes when I'm spelling, but I always check my work through at the end, which is something you can do too. So now that I've bombarded you with endless information and chatted for quite a while, I'm going to leave you now, and you need to read through. You've got a selection of 3. You don't have to read through all 3. Choose the one that you want to read through. Either there is a report on hedgehogs. There it is. You can read through that and see if you can find the title, the subheadings, the pictures, to think about what interests you in it. Have they asked questions? Read through the reports to see if they've included everything that I want you to include and more. There's one about hedgehogs. There's one about sharks if you want to do sharks instead. This one's included real life photographs of them as well as illustrations. See if you can spot where they've put their subheadings, and they've even put out an extra little big fact box on them. Or if you don't want to do hedgehogs and you don't want to do sharks, you could choose to have a go at reading through the Emperor Penguin instead, which has got plenty of information. A do you know box, a picture here with labels. So you, like I say, you don't have to do all 3, choose one, read through it, and enjoy learning some of the information from there too. And hopefully this lesson will be a really good foundation for all the fantastic work you're then going to do through the rest of the week. Hang on, where am I? Stop sharing. There I am. So enjoy, have fun, careful reading, and if you do get stuck on any words, because sometimes you do find tricky words in this sort of thing, and because they use sometimes scientific words or longer words that we're not used to reading, break it down carefully, try and use your phonics, and if you're still struggling, see if a grown-up can just help you. And if you want to, and you've managed to read the whole thing completely independently and you're a superstar, maybe over dinner later on, you can tell your family exactly what you've learned, all the new information you've learned from that non-chronological report. Anyway, I'm going to go now because I'm whittling on. Have a nice lesson. I'll see you tomorrow for your spellings and for the final instalment of George's Marvellous Medicine. We're finishing it all off tomorrow. That'll be the whole book read, just in time for half term. So I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, be safe, be good. Tidy your rooms. Bye.